Yes, it is that time again. Another edition of Angela's Homeschool. Now, on our last episode, I was talking about the different types of curriculum that are available for the homeschooling family, the homes educator. And I got to thinking, that's really not fair to spring that on you without talking first about learning styles. What type of learner is your child? This is very important. Because you don't want this sound with your kids. You want to hear happy sounds like this. Or if they're really impressed with you, like you've gotten a rocket building kit because they're really interested in that type of science, aerodynamics, just all that different stuff. You might hear this because they're so touched that you thought of them. Okay, kids, that's enough. So we're here. We're at the beginning of your homeschooling career, your home educator career. You've chosen this. And oh my goodness, all these different types of curriculums. You go to that person. This is the way to do it. You go to super organized, super mom, and she has her answered, even indexed for you. First answer is this. Second, and you feel like you've been in a college class. I love these mothers, by the way. So let's go ahead and stop that. So I'm going to show you a way out of the dark cave and into the light. So, because I've been where you've been. Like, can I do this for the first time home educator? What will people say? And then the questions. They'll even ask you, what about socialization? Okay, you can handle this. As I said before, my favorite phrase, you can do this. It is possible. And I'm going to help you. Now, let's look at learning styles. About 2/3 of the children today, they learn concepts one idea at a time. Sequential, they think logically, they attend to details, plan ahead, and are organized. But that does not cover all children. And math, especially, this type of approach works well for these children. Rote memory, that type of thing. But we have another third of the children. They learn whole concepts all at once, rather than being sequential, like, oh, I get it, I see the big picture. Now, sometimes we call these children, this part of humanity, holistic learners. Now, the thing about them is that they sometimes miss details as they focus on the big picture. They're not detailed-oriented. And you can pretty much, as I'm speaking, probably think of your children in one or two groups. Now, conceptual, I love that term. I have conceptual kids. I can really tell you about this. As I said, they see a whole pattern at once. They think in patterns. So they don't need to break everything down into parts in order to understand it. 1, 2, 3. Then we go here. Like, they get it all at one time. But the details do get lost, as I said before. If you have a conceptual learner, they're going to be really frustrated with rote memory in learning math and subtraction facts. They really, really love geometry because it's a puzzle. If this, then that, proving the statement. They like that. I will say they may take a little bit longer to grasp an idea. You may say things like this. Is my kid ever going to get it? Am I going to fail forever? No, you're not failing. It just takes them sometimes longer to get the aha moment. And then they can understand the concept entirely. It's fully integrated in them. Now, the sequential child may forget. But once they fully integrate it as a conceptual learner, they'll get it. They'll keep it. They'll retain it. They have a high reading comprehension as well, conceptual learners. Also, conceptual learners seem to be, slow learners. But then all of a sudden, they're going to surprise you with their conceptual knowledge. Like, you think they're not making progress, and you hear them talking to grandma. And you're like, wow, whoa, The child's telling grandma what they've learned. You're like, I didn't even teach her that. But the child got the concept. So I'm kind of a fan of that type of learning because it works well in our family. Took me a while to discover that my children were conceptual learners. Now, if I said before, another way to tell if your child's a conceptual learner, in learning basic math, 5's having a party, 2 wants to go. Who does 2 bring to the party of 5? 2 brings 3. It's a concept. It's a picture in their head. And then if you try to get them 2 plus 3 equals 5, 2 plus 3 equals 5, 3 plus 2 equals 5, 3 plus 2 equals 5, they might not get it as well as the illustration I just said. Just wow, Life of Fred is really good too. But they learn intuitively. And with the result that the process they use to arrive at the answers can puzzle a sequential teacher. You may be a sequential teacher and have a conceptual child, or the opposite. And this can be overcome. It really can. So let's take a look at the sequential learner. What are some things that you can identify in your child that might determine that he or she is a sequential learner? A sequential learner will do things as this. I'm going to list off quite a bit. Typically thinks primarily in words. Now, the holistic learner, the conceptual learner, they think primarily in images. Now, this is very important that I stress this. In teaching a child that is on the autism spectrum, this is very important. A lot of times, autistic children think in pictures. Temple Grandin, for those that have a special needs child, Temple Grandin is a lady that has specialized in husbandry. She designs chutes and she revolutionized husbandry, like to get a cattle into the chute to clean and then to vaccinate. Before they used all these angles. And instead of using a round device, chute, a chute being SHUTE. I mean, she saw things that other people didn't see. She saw that they were distracted by jackets hanging over the chute. So she removed them. She just thinks in images, pictures. She sees what the sequential learner does not. Again, sequential learning is 2/3 of our children. Conceptual learners like Temple. And she talks in great detail in her books on learning styles, especially what she went through. That it was difficult for her because basic math was more challenging because it's something the sequential learner can do well. They do well at arithmetic. So let's go through this. So if you have a child with autism and you're going to homeschool this child, be aware that more than likely your child's going to be a conceptual learner, even if you're a sequential teacher. So the sequential learner has auditory strengths. They do very well in speaking. And the conceptual learner has visual strengths. They can see perspective a lot better. They can see things. Einstein would suddenly be walking and then he would see the answer. He would never say, I thought of the answer. He said, I would see the answer. Oh, goodness, there's just so many. Tesla, one of the greatest minds, in my opinion, that has been understated in our history. He would see the answer. Didn't think the answer. He would visually see it. And he had a fantastic memory. So the sequential learner has auditory strengths. You speak, she quite understands. And then the visual learner, you have to do a lot of illustrations. The sequential learner relates well to time. They're always on time. They can plan things out. More than likely, they're going to be in the line ready for lunch before everybody else. They're up at 7 o'clock because that's when they're supposed to get up. And the conceptual learner relates well to space. Think of Frank Lloyd Wright. Very good example of conceptual learner. So if you could think of learning as a house, think of Frank Lloyd Wright and the use of space in his designs. And then if you look at the sequential learner as a house, you want to think of arts and crafts. It's a type of architecture where like even the cubby hole underneath the stairs had a purpose. Everything was very, very neat, proper, everything in lines, things of that nature. Okay, our sequential learner also is a step-by-step learner. So that means, a curriculum like, even the wisdom booklets, that would be a really good thing. The Saxon is a step-by-step plan, if you ask me. Now, the conceptual learner is a whole part learner. For example, in Mortensen Math, now Math you see, a lot of the ones that use hands-on sensory learning, where they use the cubes, where they can see things, they can get the whole picture. They can understand a rectangle and how it relates to math. The parts, the divisions, like they can see the whole thing. They have to think of things as a concept, like in Life of Fred. I highly advise, if you have a conceptual learner, to look at Life of Fred as a possibility for your math curriculum. You're going to love it. All right. A sequential learner learns by trial and error. Similar to, what's the term? Like an empirical science, where it's based on observation and experimentation. Try one, then see the effect. Try another, see the effect. Now, a conceptual learner is going to learn concepts all at once. Like, aha! And again, I'm going to divert back to Tesla. He invented many inventions. He's the reason why we have radio today as we knew it. He is the inventor of that, not Thomas Edison. And he would actually get an image in his mind. He would get the big picture, more so than any other conceptual learner that I have ever known of. Now, going back to sequential learner, progresses sequentially from easy to difficult material. Again, Saxon's a great curriculum to illustrate that. In order to go on to the next lesson, they had to master the problems in the existing lesson to a 95% or better. And the conceptual learner learns complex concepts easily, struggles with easy skills like adding and subtracting, but will get basic algebra, will definitely get, geometry quite well, physics, loves physics. Sequential learner is not happy with physics. A sequential learner is an analytical thinker. A conceptual learner is a good synthesizer. Sequential attends well to details and does well at arithmetic. And we're talking the grammar of math, like with the multiplication, the rule of zero. Anything multiplied by 0 is 0. That. And the conceptual learner sees the big picture, may miss the details, as I said before, and they are also better at math reasoning than computation, right? Maybe they're not able to get all the facts. Maybe they're going to need help remembering that 10 times 12 is 120. But though if they see that as a picture, as a concept, like 10 12s equal 120, it's just a different way of looking at it. It's hard for a conceptual learner. This is key. I want you to listen. They cannot show working when solving math equations. Show your work. If you're the type of child that you need to show your work. Show your work. Especially if long division. They found it difficult, or maybe you found it difficult to show your work. Though you often arrived at a correct answer. That's a conceptual learner. Are we with me? Okay. Sequential learner. Learns phonics easily. Can spell out spelling words. sound out spelling words, like sound it out. They can get it. They can write neatly and quickly, the sequential learner. Now, if we go on the other side, conceptual learner learns whole words easily. Like instead of using blends and digraphs, they need sight words. That works better for them. Most visualize words to see them. Temple Grandin also talks about that. When she was studying French, she could actually see a list of the French spelling words in her mind. That's how she would get answers so quickly. My oldest daughter is a perfect example of that. The picture perfect memory. She can actually see the page that the words are on. Now, the conceptual learner is much better at keyboarding. Thank God for the typewriter. Thank God for your keyboard. Then handwriting. Kind of like the doctor's handwriting, if you could think of it that way. The sequential learner is also well organized, can show steps of work easily. I'm so jealous. Excels at rote memorization. Very key. That's a happy child when you have them read off the times table. They're excited to do that for you. They're well organized. They got their pens here, pencils there, and the pens are by color. They are excited about all those things. And they can show how they got their work easily. They can, when writing long division, they can show their work. So that's very important. Conceptual learners create unique methods of organization. It's organized chaos, right? And they arrive at correct solutions intuitively. This can be a danger. Learns best by seeing relationships. And like how I said, 10 12s. Automatically they're getting a picture of 10 12s or 12 10s equals 120 versus the sequential learner just knowing that 10 times 12 is 120. 11 times 11 is 121. It's easier. They know that all multipliers by 5 end up in 5. Like 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 3 is 15. Try it. 9 times 5 is 45. It always ends in 5 if it is a 5 that is multiplied by. We have some other things also that sequential learner can do. A sequential learner has good auditory short-term memory. They do not internalize it like the conceptual learner does. They have very good long-term visual memory. Visual versus auditory. The sequential learner may need some repetition to reinforce learning. All those practice pages are heaven for that learner. Learns well from instructions. Learns in spite of emotional reactions. All right, let's look at the conceptual learner. Again, they have good long-term visual memory. They learn concepts permanently. We're talking they internalize it. I get it. I understand it. I can visualize it. I can touch it. I can taste it. It's in them. They got it. They got that those 10 12s equal 120, or those 12 10s equal 120. They got this. That's the child that will say, I got this. And you can see that look on their face. Again, my children are conceptual learners, so they develop their own methods of problem solving. Like they'll start regrouping things in their head with math. They're very sensitive to teachers' attitudes. So if you have a conceptual learner, if they see your attitude, if they see that you are disappointed or frustrated, that child's going to internalize it. Very important. Perhaps you know of oversensitive people, how they might use it as a form of abuse. If you're not careful, the student will become so oversensitive that they will use it as a form of abuse on themselves. And that hurts me to say, but I've seen it. I've seen it happen where they beat themselves up emotionally because the attitude of another student or even the teacher myself. And I had to learn this the hard way. I want to save you from that. Don't do that. The sequential learner learns in spite of emotional reaction. Very fact-based. They set aside the emotion. They go for the facts. They're comfortable with one right answer. That's good for them. They develop fairly evenly across the board. There's no ups and downs. They usually have high grades, the sequential learner. They enjoy algebra and chemistry. Now, this was true of myself growing up. I think I was a combination of both. They master other languages in class easily. Language comes easy to them. They have academic strengths. Now, let's go over to the conceptual learner. Again, they're very sensitive to the teacher's attitudes, your attitude, dad's attitude, aunt's attitude. All those people around them, they're sensitive to that. They generate unusual solutions to problems. These are the people that think outside of the box. These are the people that work at NASA. And they develop unevenly, where they may be below on reading. They're at a college level in something else. This is true of my family when my oldest, she was 11 years old. We're taking the Wyatt test. I really recommend the Wyatt test. And she's not doing that well in math. I was upset about that, very upset, and couldn't believe things were going this way. But then reading comprehension. You know how well she did at that? She's 11, mind you. She's already at a college sophomore level in reading comprehension. Through the roof, so much so that the tester said that she never saw such a difference. That this was incredible to her. That a young person, so young in thought processes, could have a reading comprehension that high. If a conceptual learner is going to learn another language, they have to immerse themselves in it. What's the name of that curriculum? It's a little bit pricey, but I will tell you it is worth it. It's the, let me think. It's really good. Their French program's really good. Online curriculum. Something Stone. Rosetta Stone, that's it. Rosetta Stone. I had to think of a picture in my head. All of a sudden I saw a stone because I knew it was stone. Rosetta Stone because I saw all the writings on the stone. That's a perfect example of a conceptual learner. That's me. So they master other languages through immersion, and that is a really good way. Rosetta Stone, I really highly recommend it, but perhaps it may not be for the sequential learner. Now, a conceptual learner, this will be the last one on this, has creative, technology, mechanically, emotional, and spiritual strengths, where the sequential learner basically has academic strengths. Praise your conceptual learner when they think outside the box for having new and innovative ideas, for that will always be their strong point. That is the engineers that come up with how to put a round tubing into a square area. They had to do that for NASA. Apollo 13. That's your conceptual learner. So, I just had to say that. All right, let me take a look at my board. I do have a chat board if anybody ever wants to listen to this. I think I really talked myself out on this. There's some listeners that are a combination of these two, of course. Children that are sequential are typically good listeners. So you have to decide what type of learner you have. And that was just the first aspect, those little trademarks. The second aspect of learning style is the modality in which they learn best. Like if you're a preschool child, they usually learn physically. Like you can, as I said before, get some plastic spoons, preferably white, use a non-toxic Sharpie, write the alphabet on it. You can do a lot of things. They want to touch it. They want to interact with the world. They want to be at the zoo. They want to see the animals. They want to go to the planetarium. They want to touch. So that is one way that children learn at such a young age, is to learn physically. But by the age of 5, they usually convert to deal more comfortably with visual or verbal input. Now, this is just an aside also. By age 5, a child's going to decide if they're going to continue to learn what their parents have taught them, their spiritual beliefs. And I think that integrates well with their learning style. If they're more spiritual, they've said yes to mom and dad, the way they worship, then more than likely you're going to have a conceptual child. Like they're really into it, very joyous. And I'm not saying that sequential children are not joyous. They most certainly are, but their approaches are vastly different. So if you're looking at this, verbal children, sequential children are really good at listening to instructions and talk to themselves. They think in sentences to plan their activities. But children that are conceptuals cannot take in long sequences of verbal instruction. So you have to really break it up for them. Like instead of telling the whole way to do it, you're going to have to tell them 3 things. And after those 3 things are accomplished, next we're going to do DEF, and you go on. So where your sequential child can be reasoned with auditory, and they're not over emotional or emotional. The conceptual child cannot be reasoned with verbally, especially when they're in a state of stress. They find it difficult to change when they have a fixed plan of action in their minds. We're talking about the conceptual child. This is true. So I think that's a good beginning, talking about learning styles. There's many different other ones also as well. You may have a child that really needs to move around as they're learning. You can read a story and they can walk or pace, or doing something in a rhythm. There's other things that can be done. But I think that's going to be it for now. I thank you so much. You guys have been a joy. I think the kids are glad that my session's over. So I'm going to end this session of Angela's Homeschool. Class is dismissed. Enjoy your learning. Embrace it. Integrate it within you so that your children may see you choosing life, choosing learning. It's a wondrous thing, and it can last forever. I thank you, and you have a great day of learning.